So we will start. So we're doing, okay, it doesn't want me to do that. Facilitate the empowerment of people with disability. This morning on my way to work, I was driving and there was the commissioner that is running the Aged Care Commission, the Disability Care Commission at the moment on the radio, talking about the cases they are reviewing this week. And specifically are talking about some interviews they're having this week about this facilitating empowerment of people with disability, and especially in the workforce, you know, giving people a fair wage, trying to go against that they get bullied and discriminated against in the workplace. So it's very interesting. I've been hearing quite often when I'm driving. I don't know whether my ears is just more used to picking it up now than before, but lately I've been hearing a lot of things on the radio when I'm driving about disabilities and things, which is,
I've been getting things on my news feed.
Yeah, but it's weird, the radio though. Newsfeed, I know they pick up when you sort of Google things, but yeah, I mean the radio couldn't be just targeted at me, could it?
No.
No.
I get discriminated against about my height. I don't know whether you'll be right because you're short. Well, this matters.
So objectives in this is, let me just share the screen with the online people. I made a recording last week and I didn't share this. I had to go and took me hours to edit the whole thing. I had to upload it onto an editing program and then add my PowerPoint to the editing program because I forgot to do the screen, which was, yeah. So I better remember that because there's a few people that are not here today, so then they, you know, can tap into this. Okay, so in this unit, we will discover how to demonstrate commitment to the empowerment for people with disability, know how to foster human rights, learn to facilitate choice and self-determination, and then get the skills for this unit. Demonstrate commitment to the empowerment of people with disability in identifying changes in the legal, political, social framework within which we work is undertaken. So the disability rights that is 1986, which is pretty old. I think it's, you know, as they're busy with the Disability Care Commission at the moment, it's probably a good chance that it will be updated soon, hopefully. But in these rights, I suppose it has been a real research document and, you know, fairly well drawn up that the changes hasn't been as necessary until now, but there's definitely a component of enforcing the rights, where a lot of people are, you know, still getting away with breaking the rights of people with disability without getting any prosecution for it, or, you know, any consequences because, you know, people are ignoring it. But protecting from discrimination on the basis of their disability. I had a student, and I might have mentioned him already. One of my students, she had looking after a young man that has autism, and she used to bring him to class. And this very institution I'm working for that is advocating for people's, you know, which is the basis of our courses, are to include people with disabilities, asked us not to bring him to class, you know, because he's non-verbal, he's a big boy, he's 20, he's a big man really. And yeah, and he was very loud. He would walk around with Barney. That's all right. No, that's okay.
Are you in a Zoom? You are.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
I do
I can do that.
Oh,
Did you want to do a record for her? Yeah. Thank you, Sue. And yeah, and because there's I suppose these men next door, guys come in, big boys from the industry for um, asbestos removal or horticulture and whatever. Um, there's, I suppose, the worry that people might be offended, or but still, you know, he didn't bother anyone. We actually moved over to Adra, and we had a classroom on that side as well. A nice big classroom, and especially during COVID, it was a nice big classroom, and there was probably about 8 or 10 students in the class. So for us to be able to be together, we were in there. And he came with, we had no problem having him there. We put a table in the back, and he was putting with his back towards us, and he would just sit there and he play with his iPad and listen to his music, always had his earphones on. And if he wanted something, he would just press on the iPad because he's non-verbal, like hungry, or shopping. It's out of the blue, just shopping from the back there. And his care worker was really good because she knew when when he gets agitated. She knew the signs, so she would then say, okay, I think it's time for us to go, whatever. But she did pretty good. And when we finished with the course, she said he really missed coming to class. In the beginning, he was not making eye contact with us. He was sort of ignoring us. And the last few weeks, whenever they left, he would high five us all. And, he actually started interacting with us, which was all he tried to show off. He'd come in the class and he would make roly-polies all the way to the back. And he's like a big boy, but he's trying to show off. And he goes, laughing at us.
Dylan had a non-verbal Tom in his class, and he went to high school. He used to go to the bus, and he was like, he's coming to work, and he used to be flapping his hand. And when he used to look out, he used to call out, "Hey, Tom!" And he was good. He used to walk around, and like his grandmother used to be, back a little bit, and he was good. Everyone loved him.
Yeah, so I mean, really, it's our responsibility to protect them because we ultimately stand up as the advocates. So, it's sad that people are getting excluded, but it is a fact that they are.
But all the kids were just so useful.
And children are incredible. They're so incredible in accepting much more than grown-ups. We always like, image or whatever. So what? That should be the image, really. To be treated with dignity and respect, to have the access to education, training, and employment. I think this is really, really essential. I'm really concerned by the fact, and I'll show you another slide in 2 slides' time, that our disability ratios are extremely high, and it's a lot of pressure on the government to supply and for fundings for people all the time. So to educate people and giving them opportunity to be employed should be our #1 focus. For assistance to the economy, this bottom will fall out if we carry on the way we are. So and relationships and social life and family life, and assisting them to enable to become as independent as possible. Independence, I think, is quite often very underrated. We went, in my country, we went through a 29-year war for independence, for people's desire to be independent and to, not be ruled by a government that wasn't looking after their rights. So when people don't really value that, it's sometimes really sad to see. If you come from where the fight that we have fought for independence. So this is a little pie chart, just a bit small, but just showing the types of disabilities. It's slightly different with people, Indigenous people to non-Indigenous people. So cardiovascular diseases, these will probably include lung diseases and things like that. People with respiratory problems and stuff, struggling to breathe and struggling to get along because they have that. Make up about 32 or 29 in Indigenous percent of people that have disabilities that are actually suffering from that. So I think quite often when we think about the percentage of people that have disability, we don't realize that it's also health issues that's contributing to people with disabilities. It's not always the death or the paraplegic or the person with autism. There's other types of disabilities. Cancers are also quite high, and which is also up on the chart as a huge percentage of people that with disability suffering from that. And then endocrine, metabolism, nutritional disorders, um, digestive diseases, and then other causes which would include uh, um, acquired brain injuries, all the types of disabilities that we generally identify as disabilities.
What's
Um,
external causes?
so external would be quadriplegic, so it's like, yeah, or it probably could also be like they are disabled because of not being accepted. There's no stairs
Okay.
or there's no access because there's stairs and there's no ramps.
Yeah.
Then so that disables them, and it's not it's society, and that's the model of disability that we're talking about. So I saw this some time ago in Maydak office, and I was looking for it. I'm going to try get a printout of it, a big printout. So it says 4 in 10 Australians um, age 18 and over have a disability or long-term health condition. 4 in 10, so that's 25%.
Oh, it's closer to 50%.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's high.
Actually, like
Hey.
40%.
Yeah, that's true. Australian ranks under the countries that among the income with people with disability, the lowest. That's the lowest, and that's what they were saying on the radio this morning when I was driving. There's some people testifying at the Disability Commission this week, where their pay rates are less because of they having disability. The workforce participation about 54% with disability, 83% without disability. 1 in 4 people report to have been sexually assaulted are people with disability. Women with intellectual disability, 9 in 10 have been sexually abused. 1.2 million people with disability reporting difficulty using public transport. Then there's some other percentages there that I can't read really, yeah. But I just, I've heard the figure also that they say 19% of Australia is disabled. These figures are much higher than that. But if you think about that, round it off, 20% of Australia is disabled. Another 10% of Australia looks after that 20% that are disabled. We're all underfunding. Then we get educated and government pays for our funding to be here. That's another what percentage of the population that are getting trained, and then we're not talking about health services, we're not talking about policing, we're not talking about all the other services, um, uh, workers, people that are getting social assistance from the government. What percentage of Australia are actually really contributing at the end to the economy? It's really, really scary. It's really, really scary if you think about it, because where does the money come from? Where, how can you just keep putting money into funded projects, and the aged care sector is underfunded really, but where does the money come from? From the taxes from 25% of the population. And years ago, we had factories that was incorporating disabled people. Why import everything? When we can create situations. I mean, there's a lot of social issues that you cannot even, we not even touching the tip of the iceberg.
You seem to be going backwards in so much.
It's just, and then there's no strawberries in the shops. The blueberries price is going up. We have a strawberry farm just down the road from us. There's nobody picking the strawberries. Nobody wants to go. The government's put out incentives on that. Nobody wants to go. Why not drive a bus load of school children down there and let them go pick the strawberries as an outing, and pay them at $50 a day or whatever, because they're school children. That's all right. They don't need the money to pay rent or whatever, and do it as an teachable opportunity. Like, we are a community, we're living together, we're trying to, if I didn't have a job, I would be out there
I would even go
picking
and do it.
strawberries.
I mean, I'd do it for free, like if they had a bus to go out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I was so on Saturday. It's always when I'm driving, I'm listening to the radio. There was some foreign nationals that are talking up in Coffs Harbour that are getting paid $3 an hour for picking blueberries. So it is, they grossly underpaid. But I mean, this is not the issue we're talking about. We're talking about disabled people that can also contribute.
Yeah.
We're not tapping into the market. We're not giving opportunities. We had a morning tea 2 weeks ago on Wednesday at that, there's a restaurant that's called Rafters or something like that, I think, down Shakespeare Street. It's just across the road almost from Macca's on Shakespeare Street, on the corner there of Sydney and Shakespeare Street. It's just across the road, that little shops down there. The little restaurant is run by people that are homeless, or not run by it. They employ people that are homeless. They actually run this charity, and that was divine. They had the most divine, tiny little snacks and stuff that just kept coming out. But we had a morning tea with the NDIS promoters, and they invited a few of the business owners in town to come and, do a bit of disability awareness towards the business owners, so that business owners would feel more comfortable and more confident to employ people with disability. So one of the companies that are doing it is Auto Corner. They've got quite a few people with disabilities working there. There's a guy with hearing and disability that's been working there for 9 years or something. He's doing really well. So, and then these business owners were sitting there, and one of the men stood up and he said, "Look, I would be employing more people with disability had my insurance not be that high." So like, it's too much of a hassle. It's just too hard. But if, like we were saying just now with the percentages, if we think about it, there is round about 2,000 people with disability roaming the streets this morning in Mackay. 2,000. That's the bottom scale of it. They say between 2,000 and 3,000 people with their care workers. So we're talking about at least another 1,000 care workers looking after that 2,000 people roaming the streets this morning, that are opportunities to be tapped into and actually grow your business from. Open your business to include them, open your business to provide opportunities for them to socialize and be a part of it. And you grow your market. You're opening up your market. What are they doing? They go to coffee shops and cane lands, or they go down the beach and have a barbecue at the beach. That's about the extent of disability outings that you get in Mackay. Or sometimes the bowls, the lawn bowls. But there's so much more to do. And we had one of my previous students, Ross. He does amazing work as well with them and trying to get things going for people with disability. And he was also just challenging the owners. I've actually recorded the whole thing. It's on my Facebook. um, his whole spiel that he was talking about. But there's honestly a huge market, and we need to uh, try to be part of the solution, not always just find the problem in it, try to look at ways that we can contribute into getting them to be to be a part of something, to be developed, to be treated like any normal person, have a reasonable quality of life. That's what we are talking about, um, participate in whatever they want to participate, and also pursue their grievances. So there's a lot of
Indio.
syncrasies, syncrasies about people with disabilities. We in diversity we spoke about um, uh, what was the word, biases that we have towards people with diverse cultures. Generally what people in society have issues with. Um, you know, if we're honest with ourselves, we do struggle all with some other cultures,
We
some
do.
like down deep below. I'm not.
Doesn't help when they're cutting people's heads off.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, those types I'm also struggling with. Like, okay.
And the way they treat women and children.
Yeah, yeah,
Like we're
no.
watching the movie the other day, and someone's saying, oh, they're having trouble with killing them. I'm like, huh, I got no troubles with killing those men.
Yeah.
I treat women and kids.
No, I entirely, I wasn't going to say it, but you said it now. But we all have that. But I think towards people with disability is the same thing. We have some sort of a biases. To be honest, I've always been a bit scared of people with disability. Not so much somebody that's perhaps blind or deaf, or somebody that's a quadriplegic. Not so much. But when these youngsters came to ideal placements, and they all got autism, and quite a few of them are nonverbal, and they sort of there's one young lady there, she would start screaming at you, like full on fighting with you if something is not sitting well with her. And I'm like really uncomfortable with that.
That's my life.
And I've always sort of felt it easier to work with older people because, I don't know.
You probably only like that a letter because you're probably, thinking about upsetting them and everything.
Yeah, so worried about,
Yeah.
what the reaction would be because I'm,
They
but
get triggered by lots of different things.
Yeah.
My grandson was triggered yesterday. He's on school holidays now, and I said something about going to school tomorrow, and it triggered him because he thought he had to go to school. No, I'm on holidays. You don't
Yeah.
know what will trigger them.
yeah, and that's the hardest thing,
Just in the tone of voice can trigger, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
with Dylan, like, especially when I used to have to go to school, I had to, even if I was frustrated or angry and I raised my voice just the tiniest bit, oh my God, it would be the worst thing.
Mm. How many holes have you had in your walls?
I've had a whole side of the wall go inch through his whole body in, and not to mention the head.
And you're expert in fixing
I was
those
lucky
now.
I ended up meeting Jaden's dad because he was a carpenter. He used to have to fix the walls, and then his friend used to have to come and paint the walls.
So, but anyway, so people with disability can also, I suppose, I sense it when we feel like they're not, worth anything, or they are object of pity and charity, or the fear of rejection, and when they start working or in social groups, being seen as a burden, being isolated or segregated, having their life wasted, social relationships disconnected, lost over their own lives, being seen as belonging to a group, not as an individual, um, and being unable to support themselves. So a changing social context of work and consumer-centered approach, and changing government and social views approaches to working with our clients, In the economical context, the current economical situation relates to and affects people with disability and subsequently their needs as well. And then the myths, as we were just saying, myths with the people with disability.
And the parents also, mothers also go through a grieving process too because
Yeah, it's such an follow-on effect all around, really.
they do.
Um,
Well, they,
And I think at the moment, and like what I was listening to the radio this morning, they are putting a lot of emphasis on trying to make um, business owners more aware, and trying to get people to be more involved. I was also, I don't know if I shared this with you last week, I also listened it was on my way home, the tennis player Nadal. He has his own company. Did I share it with you guys? Yeah. So it's pretty incredible what he does because of, just everyone that works for him is disabled and they do this food. So it's not impossible. There are people that are overcoming that. And, you know, um,
The simple things like the IGA supermarket down in Shakespeare Street, they used to have, I think it was 2 days a week at different times, where they'd turn all the lights down low and music would be minimal and say to make it more comfortable for people to shop with people, with their families or themselves, that don't can't not exist, that don't feel comfortable.
yeah,
with the
that's
bright lights, lots of
triggered,
music,
yeah.
the loud noises.
Yeah, and I know
That
that
was a good thing.
Woolies are good for it as well. I quite often you go into Woolworths and you see quite a few disabled people working for Woolworths, which is really good. They are focused on that as well. So, and like Ross was saying at this breakfast the other morning, if you have a friend that say there's a Down syndrome person and she works at a cafe, you're gonna make sure that you go when she's there. So you support the company that has the people working there that you've got a connection with.
there's a pathology place that's hired a Down syndrome girl. She's been there for years, and she used to come and get the paper every day. But she has been there for that many years.
Yeah, and
Like
it's
she's not it's really bad Down syndrome, but she
Yeah.
has Down syndrome because you can see. But she has worked for that pathology place for many, many years, the big one in town.
And there's a lot of focus. I mean, I also saw on the TV last night, I think it was on SBS, there was an advert with a young Down syndrome person getting a job and loading a truck and getting the truck out. So there's a lot of awareness going now. And it's really great for us stepping into the industry because it also makes it easier for us to find opportunities for our clients. If we do start talking to them and they say, well, I'd like to do this, we there's opportunities we can start exploring for them and help them to grow and find opportunities. So
Taylor's Hotel used to there used to be Down syndrome man that worked at Taylor's Hotel. He's a bit old now, but yeah, he used to work in the kitchen.
yeah, I mean they can do is if they're given the correct opportunity, they can contribute just as well as we do. So identify ways society can affect the level of impairment experienced by a person with disability. In the disability laws that are there's the Disability Service Act 1986, there's Discrimination Act 92, Home and Community Care Act 1985, and Disability I've got that one twice.
They're quite old, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all quite old. So the Service Act, it's so little written, nobody can read that.
That's just when the act was brought in, but they have updates.
They always update, yeah. The principles are, and you probably can't read that, it's more a reminder for me. It's to respect them for their human worth and dignity, whatever nature, type, or degree of disability they may have the same rights as any other Australian, have the rights as to society, to services and support attending a reasonable quality of life, have the same rights as other members of society, participate in decisions which affects their lives, and who are receiving services have the same rights as other members of Australian society to receive those services in a manner which results in the least restrictions of their rights and opportunities, and have the same right to pursue any grievances related to the services or other members of Australian society. So the objective of people with disability should be able to increase the independence and employment opportunities to ensure with good everyday life conditions and access and integrated services tailored to support the individual, and access to advocacy support and participate in any planning. The one example the commissioner was using this morning was one gentleman that works for the Australian Tax Office that has been there as a senior um, executive member now, but he started off originally and experienced quite a bit of discrimination in his earlier years, and he will be testifying this week at the commission, about all the struggles. And he, suppose, as a person that has made a success of his life, made a success of his career, as an example, that it's not impossible, to provide them a good quality of life and least restrictive approach, social interactions, ability to develop skills, encourage equal opportunity, client-centered and holistic approaches. Chapter 1.3, reflect on their personal values and attitudes regarding the disability and acknowledge their potential impact when working in disability context. So an organization can reduce the impact of various impairments by providing the services for individuals with hearing, just providing maybe big rights boards, or it's so easy these days with these, like they have in the center of town there with a big lit up board with writing on, for people with hearing disabilities, visual impairments, disability access to buildings, LL and in consideration. I was just hearing somewhere yesterday as well, like I was on Dyslexia Australia was an advert again. I like watching ABC, and they were saying a huge percentage of Australians have got dyslexia and not even aware of the fact that they have dyslexia.
Still don't recognise it.
Yeah, and they had a link there for help with people with dyslexia. So, in doing this reasonable adjustment, literature, um, numeracy is the last one, literature, language, literature, and numeracy, yeah. So doing reasonable adjustments, and I've done that in the class. I've had a few students with dyslexia coming in, and I'm like, so it's my second language, so I'm not too fussed about spelling anyways. I can see when something's spelled wrong, but quite often I have to go and search anyways to spell it right. But there is the great thing with one's phone, really. I haven't taken my phone out. I wonder if I have it. But you can do voice to text on your phone, so which is real amazing way. And even on your computer you can do there's on Word there's a speaker. Yeah, and you can then speak into it. And I use that for my studies. If I read a question and I'm like in the lounge and I think about it and I want to reply or answer it, I would just do voice to text for myself and I email it to myself, and then I pull it out and go and stick it into my Word document and edit it from there, because it just goes much quicker. Also, if you can talk, So those are reasonable adjustments that you can make when you're struggling or somebody is struggling with LL and N issues. If I have like Jerry, she has 2 students that she takes down to uni, and she does the set 1s and 2s with them. The one young lady, she's just finished the set 2, I think. But that's what Jerry did. She would ask her a question and then she would record her response. And whether it takes a bit more or she says more than what you like at the end dictate, but then Jerry would take it from there and she would just take the relevant out of there and answer questions for her. So she basically done the course for her, but she did get her responses through, recording her responses. Um, so in training for dedicated support workers, and we really need much more than what we are doing in that regard. My husband's also, uh, since he started doing this course with you guys, he's he's at the technical college, and he's been more aware, and it's create a great awareness for him. So he's really opened up to having young men with autism in his class now, and he's helping them, and he's been really commended by it, and he feels so proud of himself because he's actually helping these young men, and he understands their disability because he went to looking at it a bit, and he's really encouraging them, and he's having a lot of fun as well. And this one person that he's helped a few weeks ago, he's now going into the workforce, and they've helped him to make a recording of his resume instead of doing it as a written resume. And he's submitted it, and he's now, and I put him in contact with Sarah at Community Solutions because they place people as well. And Auto Corner. So this young man is off finding his first job now, and his name has gone around town, and everyone is aware of his plight because he's really made quite a bit of waves with just saying, well, I'm scared I'm going to be bullied. I'm scared, and he's being real about it. And yeah, and it's incredible to see this kind of changes happening. He's even he went for a mock interview with the coal terminal.
Oh, yeah.
And the big boss from there was at our we call it Mr. Tan meetings. We have training and assessor meetings once every 3 months or so at the uni. And he was there, and he was talking about him, and everybody is aware of this kid because he's really, really determined to find a job, and he's really touched some hearts, and so companies really need to make some adjustments. When I was doing my trainer and assessor course, we spent a whole unit on LL and N issues and how to make adjustments for people. You have somebody with a hearing impairment, if you've got somebody with back problems, how to be able to incorporate them and make adjustments. Is it hot in here, or Mother?
Well, I'm sleepy. I'm struggling.
I'm wondering. Yeah,
For
I'm
some
just gonna
reason.
go because it just seems.
I really.
It seems.
Caffeine.
I'm just. So the impact of these perceptions on the workplace, our perceptions of people with disability are bound to have a variety of effects in the workplace. We may make assumptions about the abilities of people with disability during the employment process. We might also assume that workers with disability need support when they are quite happy to be able to act independently. So, chapter 1.4, developed and adjust our own approaches to facilitate. So, the model of care, and we've spoken about the social model of disability a few times already. So, this model of disability identifies systematic barriers and attitudes that make people feel excluded. This model draws on the idea that society has disabled people through designing everything to the needs of the majority of people who are not disabled. Then there's the medical model of disability that focus on the disability as a health condition that needs to be dealt with by health professionals. This model links disability diagnosis to the individual's physical body, and its aim is to expand its functionality and improve function and allow disabled person to live a more normal life. And these misconceptions, um, making them feel like they're pity or charity, worthless, rejected, isolated, stereotype, and waste of space and name calling. Um, and I think, for generations, that's been a real huge part of why society has actually hidden people away with disability, because of that. Um, So we contribute to person-centered approaches, obtaining feedback from the disempowered, identifying resources to help them, conducting surveys, identifying resources to empower, and meeting some key people in society. We can help them with strategies by role modeling and training, information, connect with lobbyists or people with appropriate expertise. And we can also contribute to the, when there's these disability commissions running by just going, when you Google disability care commission, there is opportunity there to actually submit your whichever plight you have. If you've got a client and they like individual stories, they like it when they can draw on, I have an individual client that struggles with this, and I see that there's opportunities for this person, but they can't, business owners are not willing to go the extra mile, or not willing because of the insurance or whichever way, to include people. So, and running these things as a lobby. Um, I um, I don't know. I'm saying this, not really know, what happened behind the scenes, or whether it was a contributing fact to the fact that my son is um, uh, in a rehab now. But I made a petition that I sent to the council, and all my students, we actually had training on suicide prevention and drug and alcohol support. And during that training, I asked, will we mention something on, how little rehabs there are and how little support there really is for people with struggling with drugs and alcohol. And then we made a petition and we submitted the petition to the council. One of my students was a junior counselor, so he knew the right wording and he knew the right documents to do it on. So it actually went all the way. So they picked it up, they responded to me. I was like, wow, I even really got through. I Then the newspaper picked it up and they had 2 interviews with me about it, and we spoke a lot about the problem with ice in Mackay, and and then she made appointment with the shadow health minister. So yes, I got to meet her, and I went to all the PMs in Mackay, spoke to all of them with the help with one of this young what do you call it? The write stories at the newspaper, reporters. Yeah, and she was really, excited about this. So it was all like just naturally happening, but for the first time it sort of just blew things open for me and opportunities. Next minute my son got an opportunity to go into rehab and he's doing really well. But you know what, because most of the time a lot of people say if they try to get into rehab, and we've been trying with him for the last 5-6 years, every time he says he wants help, there is no help. They say, oh, you have to wait, you have to wait, you have to wait. And it all just happened so quickly. And when he said, I want help now, it was there. So I don't know if it's the plight that, the fight that I fought or that I took on that was contributing to it or not. Nevertheless, he's in there now. And, sometimes I think I'm quite amazed, because coming from a country where we're a very socialist country, and we've been very, it's meant to be democratic, but it's not, where your voice don't really matter, to a country where if you do have if you choose a fight and you fight it fair and you fight it right on the right levels, you can go quite far. There's actually opportunities, but you need to know, of course, you need to know how. It's, for years and years we have struggled trying to get anywhere with it, because we were trying in our own ways and we didn't know.
One place here in Mackay where you can do rehab.
Yeah.
Which is the St. Vincent's School.
Yeah. But there's 2, and there's definitely funding now coming for a 3rd one.
What's
So
the one?
It is, I forget now what it's called, but yeah, there's another one, another 8-bed facility.
So this
I
is
don't know where it's at.
Residential.
Residential, yeah. And then ITOTs do the day, the day
And
programs,
lives
yeah.
as well, I think, do a day as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. But there is a need for a much bigger facility, and there is definitely need. There's a lot of funding as well. I mean, mental health gets so much funding, and they're not applying it. It's
Well,
not going to the place where it's meant to be going
where we
anyway.
were
So
on the Gold Coast, with my son, he had an opportunity to do rehab, and it lasted 2 days. First, it was just a 7-day one, and then he would have been actually been able to probably offered a bit more one with Salvation Army. He only lasted 2 days.
yeah, they have to be ready, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part to come to, is where you have to wait for them to be ready. I just stepped away, but I did behind the scenes. I did fight my. I'm still fighting my fight, not only for him, but behind the scenes for everyone. It is one of the fights that I have chosen to fight. But it's also just been an amazing example to me as an individual that the heights we can go if we want to. If we really connect with the right people.
So how long
So
do they stay in rehab for?
he's staying there 3 months. Yeah, it's a 3-month program. Yeah,
I
it's
think
been
most
a
times the 3 months is a sort of a minimum.
yeah. It's kind of also just the beginning.
Yes,
Once
yeah.
they come out of there, they need to still link in with their support services. So, and with him, there's two factors. He's definitely got some degree of autism, and then there's the other factor that he was violently assaulted as a little child. So, and quite often there's something they try to forget. That's why, and to start understanding. And at the end, I mean, bipolar, any of the mental health disorders are quite closely linked to drug abuse as well.
Then you
So
got that borderline, when they have a trauma, they also could have borderline personality disorder.
yeah, and if you start understanding, well, not even start, it's just sort of scraping the surface again with what how sensitive the brain is, how intrigued, how much can go wrong, and you understand also. But just connecting with people, connecting with the right people, again with this disability services, I'm just amazed at what it's expired over the last month or so. Even just getting to know Ross and the young gentleman that used to be part of the council, and his outlook, getting to know what they are doing at community services, uh, even what Ideal Placements is doing, and just connecting the dots of opportunities. And there's quite a few um, uh, up and coming RTOs, with registered training organizations, now are starting to focus on actually giving people skills that are not just play skills, but real skills, not just oh, we're going to go do arts and crafts, but actually, developing people.
Yeah.
That is another place, is that a Life Without Barriers. They're doing amazing work. They say you go in there, you see how they actually got a small factory going there with things
My
that they are
cousin
doing.
told me that said to her, because that's where her foster child came through, that's who works with her, if I can get into a Cert 4, that they will put me on, and
Yeah, yeah, and that's incredible, because sky's really the limit for what we can do and where we can go
How
with
many subjects
whatever
can you
choose.
cert for?
16, depending on which one, but there would be some of these that you've just done that would be
Yeah.
credited. Yeah, at least 3 or 4 of them would be credited. So it's a good step to take, and it helps you. It opens up. St. Vincent of the Paul, they're looking for care workers. And all you need is a Cert 4. They don't even specialize in which Cert
How
4
much
you
would I be
need.
looking at to do the Cert for? Because I want to don't think
You
They
can get, it can be guaranteed.
yeah, and they will,
It can be guaranteed. You just have to find an organization that has guaranteed ones, but there are guaranteed ones. The government are actually
even though we've
paying
accessed
for.
this for the Cert
Yeah, but that's a set 3, not a set 4.
And I also have
So we
another
all
question.
have the opportunity to access one set 3 and one set 4.
What about if you done a cert 4 back? I've done a cert 4 back in, when I was leaving the police service, I think it was 2014, 2015.
Is that on your already on your USI? Does it appear on there?
It's on my USI.
Then probably not.
Apparently,
But you can
Not
go.
Without Barriers will pay for it if
Yeah.
you're signed up. Apparently,
Yeah, you can go through an organization that will put you through it.
Because I know
But
workplace health and safety. cert 4.
I've done I'm busy doing my diploma in counseling, and I had to pay for it, or it's 12,000, but I'm putting it through HEX. So, you know, you can do that as well. You can put
Yeah.
it through HEX, and once you start earning, it just comes off your tab. You're
But I
not
just
really
wanna,
going to feel it.
If I do have to pay for what sort of is the amount, because some of them, they'll just charge you phenomenal amount.
It's around about $300 to $400 per unit. So like what I've done with the training and assessor, and that's why I have to pay. Well, I paid for my training and assessor anyways. I paid 4,000 for that, but I'm paying 12,000 now for the diploma. So it depends on the amount of units that you are doing, but it's around $300 or $400 a unit.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's no different here. So yeah, so just the social educators, so empowering people, advocating for them, support their needs, respect the cultural differences, and being non-discriminal. We have that little thing in our book. So it's just the person with disability understand their rights. I have a brilliant little video. You're gonna love this one. Did I start the recording again? Oh, geez. Yeah, I did. In this thing. This is why I closed the door.
Ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in a very small country town in Victoria. I had a very normal, low-key kind of upbringing. I went to school, I hung out with my friends, I fought with my younger sisters. It's all very normal. And when I was 15, a member of my local community approached my parents and wanted to nominate me for a Community Achievement Award. And my parents said, that's really nice, but there's kind of one glaring problem with that. She hasn't actually achieved anything. Yeah. And they were right. I went to school, I got good marks, I had a very low-key after-school job in my mum's hairdressing salon, and I spent a lot of time watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Dawson's Creek. Yeah, I know, what a contradiction. But they were right. I wasn't doing anything that was out of the ordinary at all. I wasn't doing anything that could be considered an achievement if you took disability out of the equation. Years later, I was on my second teaching round in a Melbourne high school. And I was about 20 minutes into a Year 11 legal studies class when this boy put up his hand and said, hey, miss, when are you going to start doing your speech? And I said, what speech? I'd been talking to them about defamation law for a good 20 minutes. And said, like your motivational speaking. When people in wheelchairs come to school, they usually say, like, inspirational stuff. It's usually in the big hall. And that's when it dawned on me. This kid had only ever experienced disabled people as objects of inspiration. We are not, to this kid, and it's not his fault. I mean, that's true for many of us. For lots of us, disabled people are not our teachers, or our doctors, or our manicurists. We're not real people. We are there to inspire. And in fact, I'm sitting on this stage, looking like I do, in this wheelchair, and you are probably kind of expecting me to inspire you, right? Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you dramatically. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to tell you that we have been lied to about disability. Yeah, we've been sold the lie that disability is a bad thing. Capital B, capital T. It's a bad thing. And to live with disability makes you exceptional. It's not a bad thing, and it doesn't make you exceptional. And in the past few years, we've been able to propagate this lie even further via social media. You know, you may have seen images like this one: the only disability in life is a bad attitude. Or this one: your excuse is invalid, indeed. Or this one: before you quit, try. Yeah. These are just a couple of examples, but there are a lot of these images out there. You know, you might have seen the little girl with no hands drawing a picture with a pencil held in her mouth. You might have seen a child running on carbon fiber prosthetic legs. And these images, you know, there are lots of them out there. They are what we call inspiration porn. And I use the term porn deliberately because they objectify one group of people for the benefit of another group of people. So in this case, we're objectifying disabled people for the benefit of non-disabled people. The purpose of these images is to inspire you, to motivate you, so that we can look at them and think, well, however bad my life is, it could be worse. I could be that person. But what if you are that person? I've lost count of the number of times that I've been approached by strangers wanting to tell me that they think I'm brave or inspirational. And this was long before my work had any kind of public profile. They were just kind of congratulating me for managing to get up in the morning and remember my own name. And it is objectifying. These images objectify disabled people for the benefit of non-disabled people. You know, they are there so that you can look at them and think that things aren't so bad for you, to put your worries into perspective. And life as a disabled person is actually somewhat difficult. We do overcome some things. But the things that we're overcoming are not the things that you think they are. They are not things to do with our bodies. I use the term disabled people quite deliberately because I subscribe to what's called the social model of disability, which tells us that we are more disabled by our bodies, by the society that we live in rather, than by our bodies and our diagnosis. So I've lived in this body a long time. I'm quite fond of it. It does the things that I needed to do, and I've learned to use it to the best of its capacity, just as you have. And that's the thing about those kids in those pictures as well. They're not doing anything out of the ordinary. They are just using their bodies to the best of their capacity. So is it really fair to objectify them in the way that we do, to share those images? People, when they say, you know, you're an inspiration, they mean it as a compliment. They mean it as a compliment. And I know why it happens. It's because of the lie, because we've been sold this lie that disability makes us exceptional. And it honestly doesn't. And I know what you're thinking. You know, I'm up here bagging out inspiration. You're thinking, geez, Stella, aren't you inspired sometimes by some things? And the thing is, I am. I learn from other disabled people all the time. I'm learning not that I'm luckier than them, though. I am learning that it's a genius idea to use a pair of barbecue tongs to pick up things that you drop. I'm learning that nifty trick where you can charge your mobile phone battery from your chair battery. Genius. We are learning from each other strength and endurance, not against our bodies and our diagnoses, but against a world that exceptionalizes and objectifies us. I really think that this lie that we've been sold about disability is the greatest injustice. It makes life hard for us. And that quote, the only disability in life is a bad attitude. The reason that that's bullshit is because it's just not true. Because of the social model of disability, No amount of smiling at a flight of stairs has ever made it turn into a rap. Never. Smiling at a television screen isn't going to make closed captions appear for people who are deaf. No amount of standing in the middle of a bookshop and radiating a positive attitude is going to turn all those books into braille. That's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I really want to live in a world where disability is not the exception but the norm. I want to live in a world where a 15-year-old girl sitting in her bedroom watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer isn't referred to as achieving anything because she's doing it sitting down. I want to live in a world where we don't have such low expectations as disabled people that we are congratulated for getting out of bed and remembering our own names in the morning. I want to live in a world where we value genuine achievement for disabled people. And I want to live in a world where a kid in year 11 in a Melbourne high school is not one bit surprised that his new teacher is a wheelchair user. Disability doesn't make you exceptional, but questioning what you think you know about it does. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure she's since passed.
Has she?
I'm pretty sure she has.
Oh, yeah. I've learned so much from her. It's really changed my perspective completely, Incredible. I've seen quite a few videos on her talking. So types of disability, people with vision and vision impairments, audio cassettes. I mean, audio books are amazing. I love listening to my audio books in my car as well. Yeah, larger print and stuff like that. People with hearing and disabilities, they can, captures on the videos or internet, easy English. People with intellectual disabilities, large and illustrated print. Um, People with mobile disabilities, again.
It says here she died 6th of December 2014, age 32.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's not long
Well,
after
that was
that.
2014.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Born February 24th, 1982.
Wow. Yeah, she was remarkable, really, not just inspirational, but remarkable and, just overcoming. Yeah, so we can learn how to include people in, my heart is really, ultimately, this is my dream, is to be able to start a training organization that gives people with disability opportunity to train themselves. That is my dream, and my husband's as well, and that's why we both are, both became trainer and assessors, and we both are trying. He's also doing this course at the moment, so we can work towards that, starting our own RTO. Yeah, so it's really my heart to give people opportunity, give them real, genuine skills that they can actually apply in the real world. So they can, they can have genuine contribution to society and being active citizens as we, we're adding it on our little things. Have access to all the normal things that we have access to. Have friends, be respected, be included. Um, so I'm not gonna. I should make these slides shorter. They go for far too long. There's too much information in there. Deliver services that ensures the rights and the needs of the person are upheld, and that's really it. To develop services to include people, to help them be included. So impairment is a loss of abnormality or psychological or physiological anatomic structure or function. A disability is any restriction or lack of ability to perform an activity in the manner on whom a range is considered normal for a human being. A handicap is a disadvantage for a given individual that limits or prevents the fulfillment of the role that is normal. So anyone can really have a handicap, We don't have to be disabled to have a handicap. Um, General strategies, we can hold meetings, get the word out. Like I said, the meeting we had 2 weeks ago, that with all the business or some business owners, it has been bigger meetings, and just because again of COVID, it was a bit reduced this year. But there is a lot of organizations that are doing amazing work, and we just have to, find them and start, be a part of that, and ask specific questions to our clients as well of what do they want, what do they see, how can we better ourselves, um, and treat them with respect, and treat them with be interested, build a connection with your clients, whether it's a 90-year-old or 24-year-old. We build connection, and when you're genuine with people and you build a real connection with them, they will trust you, they will tell you their dreams, and then it's easier to help them. Quite often people, and not just people with disability, in general, we have a lot of people with a very low self-esteem in this world.
That's a disability in itself.
It is so sad, when people don't realize that they have potential, that there's so much out there that you can do. And, and then they're scared to dream. They're scared to have aspirations because they just don't believe that they're worth it, or, that they're able to do that. And we can help people in this, positive communication. And developing them, looking for the resources, and also just supporting them in whatever decision they might be making, cultural, religious, or whatever, um, and meeting their personal care needs and personal centered care as a valued person, as an individual, from their perspective and in a social way. Just because it's a 86-year-old person with dementia doesn't mean they don't have sexual needs, or they have social needs quite often. And I think I've said it before many times, is that I do believe it's innocent. I do believe it's just for companionship, and that's the same. And again, when you go and watch that Love on the Spectrum, that's the message you get from behind or through the whole. Have you seen it,
No, I haven't. Yet.
It's really good. It puts the biggest smile on your face all through it,
Well, I have watched a documentary about, yeah,
Autism.
well,
Yeah.
people, I don't want to think of it like disability or thing, then, wanting to have like a sexual
Yeah.
life, and then what they have to, sort of do to be able to try and
Yeah.
attain that. Most of it is actually to pay for it.
Yeah, and this one, it's more about these young people just trying to build friendships, just trying to develop communication skills. And I think from most of them, we got that they just want companionship. Most of them, it's so innocent. It's actually so beautiful. And there's one gentleman in there that is really uptight, and he's dressed up real smart, and he says to his mom and dad, he's got a very handsome younger brother, and he goes, all women are thinking about is sex. And he's very blunt, isn't he? He's got no filters, but they really, yeah, the message that I got from it is that it's all just about making connections and having companionship. And that's the same feeling I get from older people. It's just they don't want to be alone, they just want somebody to lie next to them, nothing sinister really. It's more just about being
The
friendship.
contact and the
Yes,
feeling of
belonging,
being
and
wanted.
yeah, and just having, friendships. Ensure the culture needs are accepted and upheld. We've done a whole unit on diversity, and it's no different when somebody has got a disability. They have, you get disabled people in the islander community. You have disabled people in the Indian community, in the Filipino community, everywhere. I mean, some communities are still hiding their disability, their disabled people away. Um, but we respect people nevertheless, from all cultural perspectives. Um, Always remember to get consent from your clients. It's part of our code of conduct, our healthcare workers code of conduct. Is one of the most important points there, is always to um, get consent. But also, if you need to speak to across language barriers or cultural barriers, to establish openness, to identify support, um, yeah, just to just respect them. A lot of these things are um, sort of repeated through the units, but yeah, having a quality of life, have the family be involved, and we know that quite a few of our clients probably will be leaving home or just be setting up, and we're helping them, training them to be independent, go into independent living because mom has just had enough.
I'm
It's
feeling very
time.
uncomfortable going to the nursing home now that I've said for a week and a half and my dad didn't have water. So now there's one lady, which I said she was very nice. She walks in the room, she walks past me now, she goes like this with her head. And then she keeps doing it. She comes into dad's room. She knows he can't hear her when he asks for coffee. And she goes like this. She walking out of the room the other day, and just had enough because it's rudeness. And I said she's nice, and as she's walking out of the room, I just had enough, and I said, "Oh, wow, that's a bit childish, isn't it, Jaden?" And he goes, "Not wrong, Mum." I'm like, and she was the nice one. Wow, haven't I changed my mind about that one? I'm like, if I have to put up with that every time I come up here, I said I'm not going to.
And the sad thing is that, they're probably punishing your dad because of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, a week
Yeah.
and a half, he's on radiation. He can't drink nothing else because he's not feeling
Mm.
the best. I mean, if I hadn't told at least 10 or more people, asked him
Yeah.
nicely, it's his
Hello,
right to have water or have it out
Ivy.
the bathroom.
Not good,
You
eh?
know, that's what
I've got to
they do,
go
give him
away.
water out of the
Okay.
bathroom.
Did I hand any? Can I have today's one? So I can.
Yeah. All right. So, fostering human rights and identifying breaches in human rights and responding according to companies' policies. So, the Human Rights Act 2004 says that everyone has the right to live a life of dignity and value, to be respected, to be protected, to be promoted as an individual and their welfare in the whole community. The Act also encourages individuals to see themselves and each other as the holders of these rights and the responsibility to uphold the human rights of others. Although human rights belongs to all individuals, they have a special significance for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the first owners of this land, and members of the most enduring cultures and individuals of whom this issue of rights protections has great and continuing importance. So organizational human rights breaches may fall in the following categories. Employment based on employment decisions on the grounds of disability may include the refusal to hire somebody. And like that gentleman said at our breakfast the other morning, he said, oh, the insurance is just too much. I don't want to employ people with disability because it costs us too much. That's actually a breach of human rights because, access to premises. I was just this morning that the man was also saying that we forget that discrimination also happens when we don't allow access. When there's no access, that's a indirect form of discrimination. So, and providing goods and services and failing to provide these services, uh, which should be publicly available. Identifying indications of possible abuse in Chapter 2.5 and neglect and report that to according to organization policies procedures. And every single unit this far, we've had a little section on defining abuse. What is financial exploitation? Financial exploitation now is also a civil issue and can be taken a criminal issue, and it can, you can be fined for financially exploiting somebody, which previously it was just falling under abuse and it was not as, so I know of individuals in Mackay that, they have signed their grandchildren have got them to sign their farms off to them, and they, have lost everything because they've been exploited. I actually looked after an old boy. He was a cane farmer, and his neighbor took him to the doctor, and his neighbor got him to sign over his power of attorney to him, um, and he did that a few months after he was already diagnosed with dementia. He had no, he has no direct family in Mackay. His brother's children, his brother's passed away. His brother's children is down south somewhere, and he still, when he first came into the home, he told me about his brother's children and how they on some markets. I want to think it's in Adelaide where they live, and they work on the markets. They go very early in the morning, and they take their produce to the markets and sell their produce every day. They're also farmers. They came up to come and see him, and this man that has taken a power of attorney over him would not allow him to see his brother's children. And when he first came, he was obviously, he had a connection with them, and after a few months, his dementia got worse. He was really, his dementia was really speeding up. But this man really exploited him, hey, and it was just so sad to see. And he was his next door neighbor, and he must have actually inherited his farm, and his children never got anything from it, and he passed away. So it happens all the time. There's another old boy that was with us. His daughter was a addict, and and she exploited him so badly that the public trustee, somebody must have reported her, and the public trustee took over and uh, took all these financial issues over, although he had children in town. So there is my daughter-in-law was just telling me yesterday also about the public trustee that one of her clients is at. It's really hard when it goes through the public trustee, because then you have to justify every tiny
Even
little
if it's
thing.
$20, I remember doing
It's
my will and taking Dad there to do
Yeah.
his will. I was waiting for Dad to do his. I had to wait outside, and they ring up and they say, "Well, check if it's your birthday. Otherwise, no." And even if it's your birthday, you're only getting $20.
Yeah, they're very strict, so it's really hard. So physical abuse and sexual abuse is definitely mandatory. So we have got a legal obligation to report that. But there's also the subtle emotional abuse, being neglected or abandoned, healthcare fraud, which is breaking the law. Um, so we must listen to our clients, and I have seen that in abuse through the years, and I've been in situations where my clients have told me that one is a real witch when you close the door, when you go out and she's left behind, or I've worked night shift and I come into somebody's room, and the person says to me, yeah, you must watch out for that one, and then you're like, oh, she's your best friend, or she's a very good friend, and yeah, she's really nice when you are with her, but eventually the wheels come off, and she's shown her true colors. And I saw personally how abusive she can be. And she must have been abusive all along and just hid it very well for many years. So,
Mackay's already got that famous thing where they were the direct result of killing elderly people in the nursing home
really,
in Mackay here.
Really?
Well, it was on the news.
Was it?
when?
Oh, it would have been well over 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
Well,
Yeah.
Not even 14 years, but I don't remember.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah,
probably Google it.
I know there's a German nurse that in Germany that killed a lot of old people. But yeah, and I have been when I worked in Namibia, where I looked after my grandmother in that same home, there was an EN there that was very abusive. And I came on duty the one night, and the one person's arm was broken, was all black and bruised. And I reported, I used to write every tiny little thing down. Every night I hand over from them, I would write, the house is very, it's out of order. Everyone is unsettled. Everyone is grumpy. And there's bruises here, there's bruises there. And I used to write all of that down all the time. And the pattern came out. It was so clear. It was this one person that always, whenever she worked before I came on duty, that would be, the times that these things are happening. And then, yeah, the one night I came onto duty, and this one old girl's arm was broken, was all bruised. And when I got to her room, it must have been just after 8. It was all already black, so it must have been broken earlier in the day. You know how bruising takes at least an hour or two to come out. Yeah, and I reported it again to the RN, and she didn't do anything, and I just sent the old girl to hospital and stuff. And the next day I thought, that's it, I'm going to look for a different job now, because I have gone like as far as I could go with complaining. And I took the streets and I went to look for a job, and I walked into this one place like Bunnings, and I said, oh, can I see the manager? And I went, oh, what do you want? Why do you want? I said, it's personal. But I knew that if I started looking for a job, they'd just go, oh, yeah, just give us your resume and, off you go. So I was very intent on giving my resumes personally to the manager. And when I walked into his office, he recognized me, and he was actually on the board. So quite often the board members you don't know who they are. And, because I've taken it as far as I could, I didn't know who the board members were. Um, and yeah, and I said, oh, okay. He says, why do you want to leave House Palms? And then I packed it out. I said to him, been there 4 years, and this woman's been there for 2 years, and this has happened repeatedly. Every night I come onto duty, people are bruised, people are difficult to deal with. They grumpy and they're not well. And this happened last night. That night when I got to work, the board was sitting, and they pulled all the records, and then it came clear as day that she was the abuser. And they could see it through all the records that we were keeping through the time. And she was scrapped from the role, but she was an evil witch. She went behind my back. She told my mom's sister and my sister that I caused my grandmother's gangrene. So my mom's sister went to a grave thinking that I caused my grandma's death, because she got this gangrene on a small toe. I was the podiatrist, so it was easy to blame me, because I was the one that was doing their toenails all the time. So she said I caused it because I cut her toes. But when my grandma got the spot on her toe, I reported it. It was written down straight away. It was not on near her nail or anything. It was under a second toe on the bottom there where the black spot started. And it was from the pressure. And then it went into gangrene, and they had to amputate her leg, and she died about 4 or 5 days after the operation. But my mother's sister still went to her grave thinking that it was my fault. And my sister only told me that before we left Africa, which was this happened in 1991, so we left Africa in 2011. So all that time, even my sister thought that I was the cause of my grandmother's gangrene, It was just, I cried so much. This woman, she said, yeah, Schumacher told us that. I said, yeah, makes sense. But, you get bullies. I've worked with them a few times already. So listen to your clients and, just be attentive. If somebody tells you something, don't let it just blow over. Just recently, where I was working, at Good Shepherd, actually, and I will name the place because I know the person's gone now. I went on to duty the one morning, early morning. I went into the room to help this one lady, and she said to me out of the blue, it was a Monday. She said to me, "This night nurse mustn't think he can get fresh with me. Come and flirt with me and carry on with me." And I thought, that's a weird thing to say. But nevertheless, I forget, go on with the day, go on with the next day. The third day, the Wednesday, one of the other women at at the table, and she's no, both of them don't have dementia or anything. She's quite a bit younger. She's a bit of a menace. She smokes in the home, and and she's had some real roles with some of the AINs and some of the RNs even. But I really like her. I really got along with her. And she was sitting at the dining room table, and she called me over, and I went to her, and she said to me, "You know what? The night nurse was fondling with my breast last night." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Did you tell them that?" Like, everyone's in the dining room, the RNs are there, busy giving the medication. They're like from here to the door away from us, but okay, it's busy Um, and I said, "Did you tell them?" "Yeah," she said, "but they just ignored me. That's why I'm telling you." Because she's a bit of a menace and she smokes at night, she goes outside and smokes outside her window and stuff. And they just branded her, said that she made trouble with the night nurses, and that's why she said that. I said, "No, whoa. Monday, this other woman told me this, and now it all makes sense." Again, this guy that was accused of it, the most handsome young man you can ever think. His wife is a doctor. Everybody loved him. And like, I never said a word to anyone after that. I just spoke to the CNs, and I told them, I reported to them, and he got transferred to day shift, and then eventually he moved down south. But nobody would believe it. Even the CNs were struggling to believe it. And they couldn't prove anything, it was the word of these old people or not. But I've one too many times have heard when people say something to you, they don't say, neither one of those old girls had any reason to have wanted to get him into trouble. You know what I'm saying? No reason.
So is it all homes and they'll allow smoking, do they?
No smoking. Yeah,
Because
they have to go outside, far away from the building.
Because at Dad's they allow smoking and drinking.
Good Shepherd, they can't. They have to go taken 2 meters away from the boundary wall.
They got a smoking area.
How far away from the building is it?
It's in the grounds.
Because there's strict restrictions now in and around healthcare facilities about that, even like at the hospital. It's a fire hazard as well,
I know,
you know.
because my grandmother fell asleep in one
Yeah.
where she used to be. This is my dad's side, so they stopped her. But where Dad is, they allow it, and it's in the grounds near the men's shed. Like, it's big, you know, it's pretty huge, that one there.
Yeah.
And it's in the grounds. And
look, I mean, I personally, I think people should have the right to choose whatever they want to choose. You know, I don't have a problem with it, but I know within healthcare laws, there's definitely been an update on that, because even at the hospital, I don't think they're allowed to even smoke across the road. Yeah. Where they used to smoke just outside mental health, there used to be a spot where they're not even allowed to do that. Yeah, they're allowed to drink at Good Shepherd. They can get a beer or something, and the DTs would once a week or so, they'd have, like, what do they call it? Happy hour, and then they would bring some drinks.
Dad's got beer in his room. They've got their own beer fridge.
Yeah, they are allowed to do that, but not the smoking. Yeah. So yeah, keep an eye, your ears open when you do hear people say things to you. Don't ignore it. Just make notes of it until you've got enough evidence. But it's, you know, I always say the abusers eventually show their true colors. And sometimes it has to be to the detrimental of somebody, unfortunately. But, you know, it's sometimes really hard to catch them, because they do things like shower them in cold showers, you know, if they put themselves, or they do things which don't leave marks always. And it's sad, but those are people with a resentment in their hearts towards the job they're having and they have to do, and they don't really want to be there. And that's horrible, though. So, chapter 3, facilitate choice and self-determination using a person-centered approach and work manner that acknowledges the person with disability as their own expert. So, person-centered planning, meeting the individual's desires and requirements, consult with the person's support network. Like, for instance, if Dylan has to go into care services now, you will be the biggest source of information to the care support team, in setting up an individual plan for him and making sure he's like growing and reaching goals and things like that. We have to bear that in mind when we start looking after people. The mums are our biggest source of information. Listen to them because they've been around, they know what's going on. Um, and also just the same as when we were doing the behavior support plans, we were doing the individual care plans, it has to be reviewed very regularly. We have to always bear in mind that things aren't set in stone when it comes to human beings. We change, and people with disability change. You might have a goal and you work towards learning how to budget, learning how to work the washing machine, learning how to make dinner for yourself. And then along the way, you realize that maybe none of these things are doable or achievable. Let's make other goals. Let's make it social goals or something else, for that person. Essential to consider that every person's unique. The individual wants to achieve, they all want to achieve whatever in their short, medium, and long term. It's their decision. It's okay for them also not to keep, to the goals. They can change. They can decide that I don't want to do this. It's fine. They can do that. It's their choice. Um, yeah. And facilitate the person-centered options for action and relevant issues and discuss that with the family. Um, just as with the aged care quality standards, the disability quality standards very similar. There's a few more standards and they're overhauling this at the moment as we speak. So as the aged care ones came out last year, these ones probably prone to change by next year. But it's about the disabled person again in the center of it, their dignity and choice, that they have the right to education, employment, recreation, social housing, service programs, and the therapy they need. So providing assistance to the person with disability to facilitate communication of their goals. These are the standards. It's that they have a fair go in whatever they decide. Standard 2 is getting the help that is right for you, which is something you should be working on, Wendy, is, that he has the right within the disability standard to get the right help, to get the right assistance, to get his goals, what kind of work, how many days a week he might be able to manage. If he gets into care work and helping in a facility even, whatever his goals may be, as well as, our clients following their plan, keeping their things up to date. Standard 3, having their say in decision making and, an eco choice. Each person with disability has the opportunity to participate as fully as possible in making decisions about activities in their everyday life. Standard 4, respecting their privacy, dignity and choice, and that, that goes all around from caring for them in the shower to protecting their documents. So take 3 towels when you can shower them. Don't just walk in there with 1 towel, because you use the towels to protect their dignity, and that's fine. Standard 5, taking part in the community, to be an intricate part of the community, to be supported, encouraged, and to participate so they can do what they want to. Standard 6, being important in the community. Each person with disability might need the opportunity to develop and maintain skills to participate in activities that enables them to achieve the valued role in community. Every person has the desire to, doesn't matter how disabled you are, to feel valued, you know, to feel like somebody cares about you or you're worth something. Standard 7, getting something done about a complaint. So, you know, same as the standard HK standards about complaints, just as the right that you have in the home for your dad to complain about some services. It is a right, and we need to support them in that. Standard 8, running the services well. Services should be organized and managed up to date, you know, having the best equipment that they need and use the money from the government in the best way to keep making the services better. Standard 9, your rights to fair wage and conditions. You know, people with disabilities should have the same rights as any other person to earn fair employment conditions. Standard 10, learning skills for the job. Good training and support means you have the skills to get a job you like, to serve, to get the training you need to find the job that you would like, to keep that job, to learn how to do new jobs, and to keep your skills up to date. They have the right for that. It's in the standards. Having staff who knows the best how to help you, so having trained staff. And I think that's another change that is definitely coming in the near future, is that it's going to become a legal obligation for us to be qualified. So currently it's not yet, but it's definitely going to, it was going to be, the deadline was the 1st of July, but they've postponed it because they're still busy with the commission, but it's definitely going to become an obligation very soon. Know what skills the staff need to help you find the right staff, make sure the staff skills are up to date. Standard 12, being safe and respected at work. When you are training, you must make sure that nobody can hurt you, talk to you in a way that you don't like, disrespect you because of your disability. If you ask your services for help, they must do the best you can do to help you. So these, you know, when we're planning these services for the people with disability, we should keep in mind that they are comfortable, they're happy, they're content, they've got fulfillment, they're satisfied, their duty of, that our duty of care towards them are met, and that it's their individual needs that are kept in mind. And chapter 3.4, provide person-centered support in a manner that encourages and empowers the person with disability to make their choices. So there's different types of diagnostic testing or testing doctors do to determine which types of disability people have. Assessing students for disabilities like they do with autism, what level of disability they have, cognitive assessment, dyslexia testing, um, learning about disability testing. So these, they can also be psychological or educational neuropsychological assessments. Yeah, so, you know, taking your clients, also giving them the opportunity to find out exactly what's wrong with them. You know, I did with my son's dyslexia. We found out that he's actually got an audio, it's got to do with his hearing. So when you talk to him, he can't hear the vowels. So even when he learned to, you know, and I taught him uh, learning to read program because I homeschooled them until they were year 12. So they, because you know, we did it on sounding, so we sounded out our words in our learning, and he just couldn't hear the sound, so he couldn't spell. He just still can't spell, but it's because of his hearing. So if he's right in front in the class and somebody looks at him straight, then he can hear you. The minute there's other noises, then it's delayed. He can't hear. He can't distinguish between, because of his something wrong with his eardrums, or I don't think exactly. No, he had some testing done with that. But it helped us to find ways to help him to overcome and help him to, and he finished year 12, and you know, and he's well on his way now to go to uni because he's learned how to deal with his disability, and he's doing really well, and he is dyslexic. You should see some of the earlier texts that he used to send to me. He's now learned to do voice to voice to text, but before it was just like, what is he saying? I don't make it because he drops all the vowels, and it's just really hard. You can't understand. So assisting it with strategies to ensure that the person is comfortable with any decision that are being made, decisions for lifestyle, education, accommodation, access to services, health, money, legally, their friends may help, people that may help us as their friends, and obviously their family members, support workers, other carers, and making those decisions. Assessing advocacy services and complaint mechanisms. Um, there's heaps of different programs in Mackay. Day programs, respite programs, guardian power of attorney, enduring power of attorney, legal assistance, advocacy services, funding, intervention and support, self-care and counseling. So people may need some of these services. And yeah, it's an awesome role. We can be involved. I know, and I have full understanding for our role as care workers and our limitations we have in, how far we can take it. And the government's outline in these courses that quite often if you go and show a CN at a facility, your outline of your course will go, oh, this is, they just about can take a red pen and go through the unit of competency. Oh, this is not allowed. This is not allowed. This is not allowed. So it's not that we necessarily learn to do things for people or offer these services to them that we always will have the opportunity to do it, but it also helps us to advocate. And I think that's the biggest role we play, is most probably nagging at our superiors, like constantly. Like, I learned that the person has this right, and quite often it might take a while before the penny drops for them, or something first have to happen before they realize what you're saying to them. I've been through the years so many times frustrated with my bosses, my CNs and RNs, that they don't listen to me when I advocate for my residents. But don't stop. Don't let that deter you from not doing it. Just because
You're looking at me?
we may not we may not be able to do all these things in
I
this.
get in trouble from my bosses all the time in retail for, well, you want me to get budgets, but you don't send me stock, so how do you expect me to get budgets?
Yeah, so I mean, it's everywhere we really go. We are limited in, what we are allowed to do, and every company has their own ways. But it doesn't mean, I mean, we get the tools to not necessarily go and do the job, but encourage for the job to happen eventually. It's kind of like in an indirect way, really. And yeah, and to also interpret what we are reading and seeing, And yes, you will go out and you will get, especially in the disability sector, you'll get people that are your supervisors and team managers that are so fixated on goals, like that's their be all and do all for everything. You have your clients and they go like, oh, your goal is this, to get the client, and this, or this is the client's goal and you have to reach that goal, and you go, but the client doesn't want to, what must I do? And then you get shouted at because they're not reaching their goals, or they put people on diets and the people don't want to do the diets. There's so many things that happen. So it's not always that easy, but I do want to encourage you not to give up, and I have seen in all the years in aged care that sometimes it helps, and it helps to build a relationship with, identify who's the RNs and the CNs that actually listens to you, and then, invite them over for dinner, make friends with them. So you got a good year, and once you can sort of get through to people, things will happen. It just sometimes takes a little bit of tricks in the trade to get through, but don't give up on it. It's it's essential because, as I said before, they might say this is just a cert 3, but we wear so many hats. We go in there. We are their advocates. We are the first responders. We are their mums. We are, their emotional support. We are their social support. Sometimes we're the only person they see, for the whole week. You come in there once a week to come and help them, to take them to the shop to go and draw their money. They haven't seen anyone else in a whole week. We are sometimes a lot more than just a cert 3 or just the care worker. We are the first ones that notice when something's wrong, and we'll be the first ones that notice when there's improvement. So hold your head up high and keep fighting for their rights, and including them. And sometimes it might mean that you might have to go and you might do that. Copy the human rights for disability and laminate it and carry it everywhere and stick it into somebody's face when they do the opposite. Just, sometimes it needs extremes to that.
Is AIN.
Same as what you guys are doing now. Yeah. Yeah,
Three.
yeah. It's more that what they refer us to when you work in a facility with older people. So when you're gonna go out in the community, you're gonna probably be called a support worker. It's again different terminologies in different places. Like in the UK, we were called carers, where here a carer is the family member that's caring for them. So it's. Yeah, I still like referring to us as AINs because it sort of gives us that idea of the order, the ranking order, and gives us that good perspective in where we get our support from.
So who does the changing of the bandages?
That's RNs. ENs can do it too, and you can do a course in wound care.
Because that's what Dylan did when he did his course through Ideal.
Yeah. So you can do a course in wound care, and quite often people like Matthew and Smith through a chemist will do a course, but we also restricted to certain things. So we would be able to go out and put in already, if there's already a wound care regime in place, we would be able to then, if you've done the course, you'd be able to then put a new bandage on. But if somebody's just had a fresh skin tear, the RN or the doctor, sometimes even at the aged care facility, they send people to the hospital because you don't know how deep it is. Maybe they need stitches. We can't do stitches, obviously.
I don't want to do.
So they would then, and then the RNs knows, but some of them also don't, I don't know when they did their wound care, but some of them also can be really.
Because this question I'm asking for, I'm like, I must be the worst person going there. I need to know that he's being looked after because his skin just tears. And like, I had Ozcare coming around to the house, and when they did his wounds, they made sure the skin was pulled